Hey all, Lynn here, and I have some exciting news. I am once again offering 10 free 45-minute one-on-one coaching sessions, and I'm doing this in the month of December. I can't think of a better way to wrap up this year than by doing free coaching sessions. So this is for you if you have been listening to the podcast for a while and you've contemplated getting some coaching help. This is the perfect time to do it because it's free. Or maybe you want to start making some plans for next year. We're almost at the end of this year. It's time to think about next year. Or you could be contemplating a career lifestyle change and want to talk it out. Or maybe there's something else on your mind. So again, I have opened up 10 45-minute spots in my calendar for free one-on-one coaching. And if you've already done one of these with me, you can totally sign up again. I would love to see you again. To grab your spot, go to lynngrogan.com/free, FREE, or you can email me, lynn@lynngrogan.com, and I'll send you the link. Anything goes on these coaching sessions. If you have a problem, I want to help you come up with a solution. So again, that link is lynngrogan.com/free. You are listening to the Courageously Unconventional podcast. If you want to change your life and start living on your own terms, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Lynn Grogan. I'm a certified life coach, and I want to help you take action toward creating your own unconventional life. Each week, I'll share inspiring and unconventional stories from those who have gone before you, as well as actionable steps you can take to start your own unconventional path today. Let's go! Hey there, and welcome back to the podcast. So today on the podcast, I want to share a mindset shift that has been incredibly impactful for me and for some of my coaching clients. And it's a simple but powerful question that's, okay, what if this was an invitation and not a threat? So before I dive into how I have used this question and how you can use this question, let me give you a little bit of a backstory. So recently I was reading The Way of Integrity by life coach and author Martha Beck. This book was recommended to me by one of my clients, and it's all about living authentically and aligning your actions with your values, which, as you probably know if you've been listening, is pretty much the heart of this podcast. So in one chapter, Beck introduces this concept called an integrity cleanse. And the idea is to identify areas of your life where you're not fully in alignment with your values and start cleaning them up. So for Beck, this meant committing to a year of complete honesty, like radical honesty with herself and others, even when it was uncomfortable or, in her case, kind of dangerous. And that year was transformative for her. So she, I think in the span of a year, publicly left the Mormon church, and she wrote about it in a book called Leaving the Saints, for which she received death threats for being so honest about her experience. She acknowledged and started healing from being sexually abused as a child. And I think that was also the year where she shifted away from academia. She was, I think, teaching at Harvard, or at one point she was at Brigham Young, and she began her journey as a life coach. And all of this came from one decision: to stop lying to herself and others and explore everything that came up, even if there were consequences. Now, to be fair, her example is dramatic, and she acknowledges in the book that most of us don't need to overhaul our lives in such a radical way. She encourages readers to start small with tiny 1% changes, which, if you've listened to this podcast for a while, that is the type of change I am fully in support of. But even with that disclaimer, it was really hard to read about her story and some of the other powerful examples in the book and not feel pressure to do something that was equally big and bold. So that's exactly where I found myself when I was reading the book. As I considered doing my own integrity cleanse, my brain was full on alarm, whoa, we can't do that. And that would be so bad. Because that's what our brains do. They're wired to protect us, to initially see any sort of change as risky or harmful. But then, as I was mulling this over, this question popped into my head. What if this was an invitation and not a threat? And it felt like such an opening, like a way to approach the idea of change gently with curiosity instead of shutting it down immediately out of fear. And it allowed me to explore without pressure to actually need to do something immediately. How can you use this? Well, first I want to talk about what I mean by invitation versus threat. So a threat could be something that is actually dangerous that we do need to pay attention to, like someone coming at us with a weapon. But for a lot of us, it's things like getting an email from your boss saying, hey, let's meet Friday at 2 with no context. And our brain goes into threat mode. And when we perceive something as a threat, it just triggers that alarm system. We shut down, we catastrophize, we avoid things altogether, we numb out, we go into full-on defense mode even when we're not in actual danger. An invitation, on the other hand, feels open and exploratory. It doesn't demand an immediate response. It simply asks, what do I think about this? What's here for me? What could this be about? So here's a small example of how this mindset helped me. So I have noticed my own low-level threat mode comes out when I look at social media. Like, who hasn't been on Facebook or Instagram and seen a post from someone and gone into full-on comparison mode? I know this is like just a normal thing that happens. So as I thought about this particular question, okay, what if this was an invitation and not a threat? I thought about a particular life coach I know and follow whose content on Instagram is just great. She's just doing a good job. She is someone who has just figured out how that Instagram algorithm works. But like every time I see her post, I just feel like a little like bristly and ick and jealous. And so for a long time, I just used the mute feature in Instagram. I just muted her posts so I didn't have to see them anymore. But then I asked like, well, what if this was an invitation and not a threat? And that simple reframe allowed me to see her work from a different lens, to actually like start admiring it and to ask myself, okay, like there's something that appeals to me about what she does. Like, what can I learn from her approach? What is she doing that I could adopt myself? Versus where I typically go, which is feeling inadequate or like I'm failing at social media for business. And that small shift turned a source of anxiety into an opportunity for growth. Okay, so let's try this together. Think about a situation or a person that just triggers that bristly defensive feeling in you. Like maybe it's that colleague who rubs you the wrong way, or a social media post that makes you compare yourself, or just someone being in a bad mood around you. Notice what comes up when you think about those situations. Maybe there's like a tightness in your chest, or your shoulders go up, or your stomach drops. Just let that be there. And then ask, all right, well, what if that situation or that person or the thing they're doing, what if that wasn't a threat? What if it was an invitation? Then let yourself explore the situation from a new lens. You might start asking questions like, all right, well, what about this really bothers me? Like, what part of me feels threatened? Why? What story am I telling myself about this situation? And is that really true? Like, is there another explanation that could be equally true? For me, when I do this, I often realize that the threat I feel is just a story I'm telling myself. It's that thought of like, I'm not doing enough, or I'm going to get in trouble, or someone's going to be mad at me. And then I go into protection mode to try to prevent those things from happening when they're not even happening in the first place. But when we can reframe threats as invitations, we can create a space to question if those things are really threats in the first place. And from that point of view, we can grow and align more fully with our values. And that's where the magic happens. Thank you for joining me today. If you'd like some personalized support with navigating changes in your life, I would love to help you. You can sign up for a free one-on-one coaching session using the link in the show notes or by visiting my website, lynngrogan.com. Until next time, keep asking yourself, what if this was an invitation and not a threat? Hey friend, thank you for listening to today's conversation. If you're considering a major career or lifestyle change and you want to talk to someone about this, I'm here for you. You can learn how to work with me one-on-one on my website, which is lynngrogan.com, and I also have details in the show notes. See you next time.